we have Hall of Famer, the man himself, Mr. Bob Arum on the line. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing? Yeah, this is co-host James, man. This is James right here. Yeah.
How you doing, Mr. Arum? Good, really good.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely good. Good to have you.
I think I met Mr. Arum once or twice when I was in the company of Don Chargan and Mr. Bill Kaplan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Don was a great promoter, a great matchmaker. His wife was involved in the business. Good people. Unfortunately, they both passed on. But Kaplan's still around. And, so, that's what happens with life when you get older. People that you were very friendly with many years ago and throughout your life no longer with us.
Yes, that's true. So, Bob, I want to be the first to ask you a few questions, and then I'll let my co-host James ask you a few questions. Now, you talking about people thriving and people having longevity and all. You doing such a great job with your longevity. Like even the great Don King, he did real good with his success, but you don't hear his name mentioned anymore. Like in the days of Don King, only in America, he's not promoting fights like you are right now. So what's the secret to being able to overcome and to still be in the game from then to now and do well?
Well, you got to understand, Don was a great promoter during his time, but Don was a one-man band. He didn't delegate. He didn't trust anybody. He did it all himself, and he did a very good job. But you get older, and when you get older, you can't do what you've done as a young guy, whether you're an athlete or just a businessman. And Don had nobody to fall back on, nobody except himself. Now, I always had great people around me, great employees, younger people, and so I kept myself and the business younger because we were always bringing in people far younger than myself. And so today, even though I'm Don's age, where I think Don just became 89, and I'm going to be 89 in December. I have all these young guys in their 50s, guys in their 40s, working for Top Rank, and so we're able to keep going. And with the experience that I have, and with the energy and the knowledge of technical innovations that they have, we're really succeeding better than we ever did before.
Okay, yeah, I agree. So teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
That is
correct. That is correct. And just like a football team, you see now when they a professional football team, when they cut great players who were great but are older now because they want to stay young and go young and have put in their place talented younger athletes. So it's the same thing for professional sports, for business. You got to keep staying younger. You can't hope to do it just by yourself because Father Time doesn't allow it.
Absolutely, you're right. So let me ask you this too, Bob. The fighters yesterday compared to the fighters today, I mean, what's the difference? And tell me about Lomachenko. How do you rate him? And you look at him as an all-time great? Because I know I heard you talking about he was as good as Muhammad Ali or Sugar Leonard. I mean, tell me, your outlook on all that. So give me your input.
I've been blessed to have promoted some great fighters like Muhammad Ali, of course, and George Foreman, and Hagler, and Leonard, and Tommy Hearns, and Roberto Duran, and then later on Oscar De La Hoya, and Floyd Mayweather. I promoted him for 10.5 years. And then Manny Pacquiao. And now we have Bud Crawford and the young man from the Ukraine that fought on Saturday over in London to a sold-out house, Vasily Lomachenko. Lomachenko technically is the best fighter since Muhammad Ali. That doesn't make him the best fighter during that whole period because, I mean, there's a good argument for Bud Crawford, who technically isn't as refined as Lomachenko, but has other skills, the ability to go from southpaw to orthodox. He's great fighter. And Ray Leonard had great skills. So did Marvin, but Lomachenko technically is the best. Not the best fighter necessarily, but technically the best fighter because Lomachenko has mastered the distance and the angles. He got a little careless in England because he wanted to put on a big show, and he got hit with a couple of punches. But generally, you can't hit him. And that was the same with Muhammad Ali prior to the 3.5 years where he couldn't fight because of the draft situation. In those days, Ali was untouchable. When he fought Henry Cooper for the title, Brian London, Mildenberger, we would bet over and under how many punches Ali would get hit with in the whole fight. And I remember we bet 7, 8, and ended up always the under would win. You couldn't hit him because he had such a great feeling for distance. Now, when after the 3.5 years, when he came back, he didn't have that foot speed anymore. He didn't have that because that goes away at a particular point, particularly when you're not using it. But Ali proved that he was still a great fighter, but he stood in there, took a lot of punches, and proved to the world that he could take a real shot. Because prior to that period, people would say Ali was great, but he can't take a punch.
Right. Okay. Well, one more question, Bob, Mr. Bob, Uncle. We call it Uncle Bob, Mr. Arum, and then James, you go ahead. I want to ask you, with the fight, the biggest fight to me in the world that can be made right now would be Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence. Will that actually eventually happen? And what is going to take for it to happen? And do you look at that as a fight that could be like the Tommy Hearns versus Sugar Ray Leonard?
I certainly do. That would be, and that's a good analogy. That was then, but right now, that's the fight between two great welterweights at the peak of their careers, going at each other. I would buy tickets to that fight just to watch it. That's a great fight, and I think Spence. I've talked with him. He wants that fight. I know Bud Crawford wants that fight. We're doing next year a Wilder Fury fight. And so I had occasion to meet with Al Heyman, and Al indicated that next year he wants to do that fight between Crawford and Spence.
Okay, yes. I can't wait. Go ahead, James. Thanks, Bob. I'll be asking you another question after James asks you a question. I know he's excited to talk to you, man.
Yes, Mr. Hayes. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. I'm going to kind of show.
It's my pleasure.
I'm going to kind of show my age here.
Yeah.
Because my greatest fighter of all times, and like you said, not necessarily by fighter, I'm not talking about boxing or anything like that, but my greatest fighter of all time was Marvin Hagler. And
that's my favorite. I mean, the night, you don't know. I mean, I did all of Marvin's title fights. Well, he was the most loyal guy, the nicest guy, no nonsense guy. And, you know, people who are really into boxing admire Marvin for his body of work and the kind of person that he was when he was fighting.
I know, you know, if you go to Conestoga now, you can catch him at the annual meetings there, and that's on my bucket list. But one thing I always wanted to ask, well, and I have you here now, what was that conversation like between you and Marvin when he decided that he wasn't going to come back in the ring after the Sugar Ray Leonard fight?
Yeah, well, I talked to him. I said, Marvin, there's a lot of money to be made in a rematch, and I know I had you winning the fight, and I believe you won the fight, but, you know, no use talking about it. Let's go back in the ring and get it done again. And he said, no, I don't want anything more to do with being a boxer. That's it. I'm hanging it up. And about a year later, I was at Caesar's Palace. They were doing a big function, and Muhammad Ali was there, and Ray was there, and Tommy, and myself, and Marvin. And Ray came up to me and said, hey, Bob, go over and talk to Marvin, and let's see if he'll do the rematch. There's so much money involved, even more than the first fight. So I went over to Marvin. I said, Marvin, I've been talking with Ray, and Ray says there's so much money in a rematch. He said, let's do the rematch. And Marvin looked at me with that scowl that only Marvin could do, and he said, Bob, do me a favor. Go over and tell Ray to get a life.
Wow.
Get a life. That's what he said.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Hey, I'm telling you, Marvin was cold, man. I remember, like I said, I love Marvin to death. I want to get up to
But the nicest guy in the world. A cold killer, but the nicest guy in the world.
Bob, another thing I wanted to ask you about is we see a lot of these young fighters now trying to promote themselves. We see it with Devin Haney. We see it with a lot of the other fighters. I mean, to me, this is something that's kind of like the house that Floyd built. But so for someone that's been in the business as long as you, do you welcome that type of competition, or do you think that these young men should concentrate more on their careers at this point, like the old school guys?
Yeah, I really believe that for a period of time they should be with an established promoter. And remember, before Floyd went out on his own and did a very good job, he spent 10.5 years being promoted by Top Rank. Now, when you get a fighter, a former fighter like Oscar De La Hoya, when he, in effect, hung up his gloves and he formed Golden Boy Promotions, I think that was okay. That was good because he knew about boxing. He knew about the business of boxing, and he felt that he could be a promoter. But I don't think when a fighter is fighting during his career, particularly the early first part of his career, I think that he should entrust his career, at least up until a point, to an experienced promoter. I mean, we have matchmakers that can match him correctly. We have the best spots where he can be seen by the most people. And I think that these young up-and-coming fighters shouldn't be wasting time promoting themselves. I think, they can come with us if they're good enough. They can go with Al Heyman and BBC or Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. I think they're better off doing that. Now comes a time towards the end of their career, if they want to go off on their own and promote, I say they should do it. I think that's good for the sport.
Yes, absolutely.
My final question before I turn you back over to K9. Also, you speak of having a lot of young people around you and being able to keep up with what's going on. So I got to ask you, what do you think about the effect of social media and streaming on today's promoters?
Well, that's the future. That is the future. It's now. So I was over in England, and I said, the English fans are great, great fans. And they said every paper in the United Kingdom, England, Ireland, every paper has a boxing right, a full-time boxing right. And in the United States, there's not one newspaper, any place in the country that has a full-time boxing right. The last one was Lance Pugmire with the LA Times, and he's no longer with them. That's the difference. So the only way we can't just cry and scream about it, the only way we can reach out to the public now is through social media. And that's what we're doing. We have a big 8-man social media department. We encourage and teach our fighters how to use social media and talk to their fans. That's really the best way we can now communicate. Now, as far as streaming is concerned, that is the future, whether it's ESPN Plus or DAZN. It's great because ESPN Plus, DAZN are bringing fans fights on a regular basis that we haven't seen in 40 or 50 years. I mean, it's great because a streaming service, say, take ESPN Plus, which I'm familiar with. Anytime you get that app and you want to see it on your television set, you want to see it on your iPad, you want to see it on your computer, you want to see it on your phone, same thing, same $4.99 a month. Not only does it have boxing and UFC, but it has a lot of college football games that aren't on the network, all the Major League soccer games, the Premier League, documentaries. Any given time, you can watch 100 different things because it's streaming, so you have a infinite bandwidth. Now, with regular television, you only have 24/7. And whether even if you have 2, 3, or 3 channels like ESPN had, the amount of content that you can put out there is limited by the fact that it is television. So streaming is the future. By the end of this year, Disney is going to offer a Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus if you want it in one package for less than $13. Now that means seeing all the big Disney movies, all the Disney, for the kids, all the Snow White, and all of that stuff, and it's very affordable. That's the future. The future is not television. Television will become the past, just like in my day when we started with television. Radio receded into the past. There's still radio, but it's music, and very few people just, listen to radio for news, except maybe if they're driving. But again, we went from radio to television, and now we're going from television to streaming.
That's right. That's right.
One more question when you talk about streaming and you just talked about the affordability. What effect will that have on pay-per-view as far as the prices?
Well, again, right now the problem with pay-per-view is that when we do an event, let's say, and say we charge $60 for the event, half of that money goes to your satellite providers, whether it's DirecTV or Dish, or whoever you bought it, or from your cable systems. So a $60 price is really $30. So now what we're going to see is these streaming services making a big fight, charging extra for pay-per-view, say $35, and the promoter would make his regular $30, they would take $5, and it's much more affordable for the public.
Wow,
Thank you so much,
sense.
Mr. Terence.
So Bob, that was a couple of more questions for you, and I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. Now you gotta get that rest, man, and get prepared for tomorrow. Now you're always busy. I wanted to ask you, like boxing. At one point in time, boxing was the biggest sport in the world, and to this day, I still think it's the biggest sport in the world. But when did boxing take a hit, and what do you credit or say it took a hit from, where people want to be basketball players and they didn't want to be boxers no more? It took us a long time for heavyweights to want to come back into boxing. Like now we got guys 6'9" like Tyson Fury and 6'7" like Deontay Wilder. All those guys were in the NBA. Shaq and them would have wanted to be a boxer if he could have came up in the days that the Muhammad Ali's and Larry Holmes.
Well, listen, that may be true in the heavyweight division. I said if Ali was coming up today, he probably wouldn't be a boxer; he'd be a tight end. Because when I started promoting with Ali, a lineman in the NFL, it's hard to believe, but look it up, was making $6,000 a season.
Wow.
A friggin' season. He was doing it because people would know his name and he could get a job on Wall Street or with an insurance company. So there wasn't any money in professional football and even less in professional basketball. Now there's tremendous amounts of money. But because of the nature of the sports, it's only for big guys. So if a guy's a middleweight or a welterweight, he ain't playing in the NFL. He's not playing in the NBA. So he goes into boxing. What really screwed boxing up is not that the other sports were paying big money, because that only affected the really big guys, the heavyweights. It was really because boxing was carried on an over-the-air television, afternoons. I remember one weekend I did a fight on NBC, and I walked across the street in Atlantic City, did one on ABC, and stayed over, and the next day on Sunday did one on CBS. These fans, that's when Leonard became so popular, and Hearns, because they were always on free-to-air television, and every weekend you'd see the fights. Now what happened? There was HBO started it. HBO realized that boxing could get a big audience and drive buys for that service. So they came to me. I was the first to fall for it. They came to me and they offered me 3 times the money that I could get from the over-the-air television to put Marvin Hagler on HBO in the evening. They drove subscriptions, particularly in New England, because of that. But then Showtime also realized that there was a lot to be gained by putting boxing on. But then the network said, we're not going to be patsies and put fights on free-to-air television, and all the good fights go to the premium network, HBO and Showtime. So for years, you saw very few, if any, fights on free-to-air television. So obviously the interest dropped off. And that's the truth.
Yeah.
That's what happened. We were all greedy. We all grabbed the money because the fighters didn't care that, that the audience was shrinking, because they would rather fight on HBO for triple or 4 times the money than to fight in the afternoon on NBC for a quarter of the money. Can't blame them. Their careers was short enough as it was. So that's really what happened.
Okay, okay. Last question, Mr. Bob Arum. I want to ask you, sponsorship. Where has the sponsorship gone? I remember Pony. I remember back in the day, a lot of fighters wear Pony. They wear Pony. They don't wear Pony anymore. I see beer commercials sponsoring fighters sometimes here and there. But, you got Tiger Woods and you got the Michael Jordans that's getting all this sponsorship, LeBron James. Where's the sponsorship for the fighters? I'm talking about what happened and where are they? And can we get them?
Well, I don't know. And now with the ESPN Plus, ESPN Publicity, hopefully. But the truth is that by and large, sponsors have shunned the sport of boxing. First of all, it's so confusing as far as they're concerned with the number of champions. And there is a feeling among companies that they don't want to do boxing. They don't want to do even UFC, MMA, because of they say it's too violent. But I think as boxing now becomes more and more popular, thanks to its exposure, you'll see a lot of those sponsors coming back.
Yeah, great. And we need them. We need them.
Yeah, we sure need them.
But thanks, Mr. Bob Errol, man, for coming on.
Good talking to you guys. You guys know this stuff, and it's a pleasure talking to you.
Yes. Now, do you have any final thoughts? You got a little Instagram or Twitter or anything? I don't know if you get on that or anything.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. Of course I am.
Okay.
I'm on Twitter. I post. I'm not like the crazy president who tweets every morning, but I post a few times a week. Yeah. So can you tell the audience, what social media you on? I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, and it's Bob Arum. Easy to access. I want all the followers to keep following me, right? Because I can tell them a lot of funny things. All right, guys. Good talking.
All right. Good evening. Thanks, buddy. Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.